We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
Big shots. Teamwork. This trophy is not given. It must be earned. The 2019 NCAA Division III Women's Basketball Championship, March 15th and 16th at the Krager Center in Salem.
Bounces right back with a triple. Great job here. And that'll do it!
Visit ncaa.com/tickets and get your tickets today.
It's on us. It's on all of us. And it's time to act now.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
March is upon us, and that means it's time for the D3Hoops.com whip around. Where else can you find the true madness that the Division III basketball bracket has to offer? Our crew will get you from one big moment to another as the NCAA tournaments start with a bang. All the action comes in a rush on Friday and Saturday, and Dave McHugh, Gordon Mann, and Ryan Scott will make sure you can follow all the big games. So why follow one game or two when you can follow 96 in just over 24 hours? Tune into the D3Hoops.com whip around show on Friday at 5 Eastern, Saturday at 6, only on D3Hoops.com.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Again, sorry for the technical glitches that apparently have plagued us tonight. Honestly, we didn't kind of get this show rolling with our computers as we normally would, and so we were probably begging for it tonight. It is what it is. We will make do, and at least we're on the air now. Don't forget, Whip Around will be on the air from here, Tournament Central tomorrow. We hope you'll take advantage of it and join us, talk about Division III basketball. And see Division III basketball, for lack of a better description. We will be bringing you everything from around the country, from Maine to Washington, and everywhere in between, maybe? Yeah, something like that. Switching back gears, men's basketball, one of the teams that I've been keeping an eye on all season, but to be blunt, there was so much to talk about women's basketball in Texas, I didn't do enough to jump into the men's basketball conversation. One of the teams we keeping an eye on was Texas Dallas. Terry Butterfield's team was certainly playing well in the ASC, which was chock-a-block with good teams this season. They rose to the top. They cut down the nets, and now they're in Walla Walla, Washington to figure out how they're going to get on to the second weekend. Who will they face? How will they prepare? And what do they think of Walla Walla, Washington? Well, joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline, it's the aforementioned head coach, Terry Butterfield. Coach, thanks as always for joining us. I appreciate it.
Hey, Dave, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. Appreciate you considering you not your prototypical trip. What's interesting, though, is you know these teams from up in that neck of the woods. You played the other wit earlier this season at your place. It seems apropos that they sent you to the northwest part of the country for this weekend, wasn't it?
Well, maybe there's some irony in that. I'm not sure. We actually played Whitworth down in San Antonio at Trinity University, but we were right there in state. And I got to tell you, it was a lot warmer in San Antonio than it is in Walla Walla, Washington right now.
Yeah, I heard there was a little bit of winter weather this year.
Yeah, and it's still on us here. In fact, we went out and found the biggest snowbank we could find, and we gathered everybody up, and we put casts and scarves on and all that stuff, and we took us a picture.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
So, in other words, you're taking full advantage of the opportunity that you find in front of you by enjoying the trip to its fullest.
Dave, the season is a long, long grind, and these kids, they just work their tails off. You know that from hearing that from other coaches around the country. They start this thing very early in the year. They work out on their own. They're 6 months into this thing. You got to embrace the moment, I think, and we're seeing a part of the country we've never seen before. Played in before. It's a beautiful area. Whitman's a beautiful school, surrounded by mountains. So yeah, we're gonna embrace the moment. We know why we're here and why we came out here, but nothing can happen until 5:30 tomorrow evening, and so we're gonna enjoy the things we can enjoy.
You'll take on Pomona Pitzer then that game at Whitman. Of course, Whitman taking on the other Texas team, Texas Lutheran, out there. Again, we'll get to what's taking place this weekend in a moment. Let's backtrack a little bit. 4 losses, 3 of them coming all before December 8th, though. That third loss coming to Mary Hardin Baylor, which was 2 losses in 3 games against Howard Payne and Mary Hardin Baylor. And of course, you lost the second game of the season against Southwestern. I'll be honest, I saw that and I kind of went, okay, they're going to take their lumps this year. They're going to be a good team, but probably don't need to focus on the Comets in a major way. But then since then, you've only lost 1. You guys kind of seem to find yourselves, as it were. The only loss being on the front end of a back-and-back against a home-and-home against Louisiana College. You've won, 9 straight since and come rolling into this tournament after a dominating win over Hardin-Simmons. Tell me what's the difference between that opening 7-8 game stretch and what the Comets have done since.
Well, I think we've had a lot of growth. I think, most people feel like their teams grow throughout the year. We have a fairly young team. We've got some experienced players, but we don't have a senior on our ball club. So we added a couple of pieces in the off season, and I think early on we didn't play at the level we thought we were capable of playing at. But I think that once we really hit the conference full go, our guys just saw an opportunity. We knew that the conference tournament would be hosted in the Eastern Division of our overall conference, and that meant that we had a shot at that. And we sort of made that a little bit of an issue. But I just think our guys came together in a good way. We've been after them daily about playing great defense and rebounding the ball, and I think that some of those ideas took hold as we moved along in the season. But as you know, Dave, it's all about the kids. When you have good kids who are also good basketball players, good things can happen. And it's amazing when kids put their minds to something and gather up what they're capable of doing.
Again, rolling along here, you guys had an interesting conference. You finished, technically a game and a half up on Laterno. And you had Mary Hardin Baylor, Hardin-Simmons, and Concordia, Texas on the other side, who all had pretty good seasons. Mary Hardin Baylor was 21-6 overall.
Really good.
You kind of beat yourselves up a little bit, and when a lot of you aren't doing a lot of non-conference improvement, and I know I've talked to Ken DeWeese about that frustration, it's hard to get that extra team in. Does that feel then that you've got the mantle of the ASC on your shoulders, and you don't need to represent, but you'd like to represent, if that makes any sense?
Oh, without a doubt. I'm very proud of our conference. We've got some great teams and just some great individual players in our conference. And, I just feel like we're in a little bit of a pickle out here in Texas because, we play a lot of league games because we have to maximize our conference schedule because it's tough for us to travel around the country unless you have a huge budget.
Yeah.
You can't go play everybody in the East and the Northeast and do these things. It takes a lot of money to do that. So we play a lot of league games, and our strength of schedule a lot of times comes back to the middle because we are playing so many league games. But I got to tell you, having been around the country, having been in the ODAC years ago, this is a really talented, competitive conference. So we do beat each other up, and it frustrates me that we don't get a second team in all the time because I think we got some very competitive teams. And I think, Dave, if you do some research and look at how ASC teams do in the NCAA tournament, I think you'll find some pretty good moments there for our conference.
I'm not willing to go that far back. I'm sorry, I can't do that kind of work. Why would I do that, Terry?
I'm just saying now, I can go that far back.
Hey, listen, you don't have to go that far back, because let's remember here, Mary Hardin-Baylor, 2013, got a first-round bye because of location, not any other reason. Second weekend played Concordia, Texas, obviously a Texas game. And then the third weekend, essentially the Sweet 16, went out to Whitworth and got a victory there, and what ended up kind of spurring them all the way to Atlanta for the championship game. We know that there's good teams out of the ASC, and I don't want to distract from the weekend currently, but let me ask you one more question about that scheduling side. Is there talk enough in the ASC to say, listen, we need to maybe pare down how many games we're playing in this conference, free up some more non-conference games, and either entice teams to come to you, like Whitworth came to Texas at least, and you got to play them, or find a way in the budget to get elsewhere, whether it's as grandiose as the D3 Hoops Classic in Vegas, or you go up into other parts of the country to some events. Has there been serious conversations about that to help get a second or even a third team into the tournament?
You know, that's always, Dave, an ongoing discussion in our league. We meet and talk about this when we're together all the time. And I would say that it's always a topic with controversy surrounding it, because some of the outliers in our conference, you know, our conference extends all the way to Jackson, Mississippi, Pineville, Louisiana, Clarksville, Arkansas, Sul Ross State University is almost down to the the Mexico border. So, you know, we've got some huge travel issues in our conference, and the outlier schools particularly are concerned about being able to gather up a Division III schedule. And, you know, like most schools, people are limited by resources and funds. And, you know, we're being told constantly, you got to play D3 games, got to play D3 games. Well, you know, the only way to raise money sometimes for a smaller school without the funds is to go play D1s and make a paycheck that way, get a guarantee. So, yes, it's always talked about, and it's a never-ending source of frustration for us when we're only able to get one team in on any given year. And, you know, we've just got some great teams in our league. Laterno represented our conference very well last year, as did Sul Ross State, very good. Louisiana College down in Pineville is on the rise. They had an 18-19 win season, very well coached. You know, Concordia can go anywhere and compete with anybody over on the western side. Mary Hardin-Baylor has a great tradition. We've got high-quality Division III basketball on the men's side in the ASC. And, again, our geography really hurts us sometimes. I was having breakfast with Charlie Katzavikas today, and they feel the same way out west.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, that the geography really limits what we can do along with budgets, and unless you've got money to fork over to get people to your place or fly around the country, you know, it's just tough.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, I don't want to dive into the deep end, though I would argue maybe some of the flights to go somewhere else would be a shorter trip than some of those conference games, just time-wise.
Yeah, could be.
But let's focus on this weekend. Let's focus on the team. We can certainly dive into the ASC conversation another time again, as we have done it often. But this is a team that everyone has had their eye on to some degree. If there isn't a person in Texas who I talk to who doesn't talk about this team, and it starts with Demetrius Underwood, who, watch out, everybody, is only a junior. This guy's going to be in the conversation when it talks about All-Region and All-Americas in the future. 21.2 points a game, 10 rebounds a game. He's second on the team in assists at 98 total this season. He shoots 49% from the floor. Not the best outside shooter, but you don't need him to be. He's also a solid free throw shooter. Yes, there's other guys. We will get to them, but he's obviously the straw that stirs the drink, as it were.
Yeah, and, you know, I'm sure you've heard this said before that I'd rather have a great scorer than a great shooter, and he can score the ball in a lot of different ways. And, you know, quite frankly, you know, he's the MVP of our conference tournament. You know, he's a player of the year, co-player of the year in our conference overall. He's really good. He can do a lot of different things, and he's a physical specimen. He can run, he can jump, but he's just a savvy basketball player, and he can hurt you in a lot of different ways. And we wouldn't be where we are without him. That's all I can say.
A really impressive young lad. Hans Bertz is the second on the team in scoring at 15 points a game. Jalen Weber at 13 points a game. Michael Forster, I added a syllable there, at 10 points a game, 8 points from Curtis Allen. You know, a lot of guys who can put up points. Underwood being a junior. You got some other guys we mentioned there like Weber who are underclassmen. Really, when you look at that's right. You don't have any seniors on this team, Terry. That's got to be a luxury.
Well, it's sort of an aberration, and it's very unusual. But nonetheless, you know, I'm very pleased that we're not going to lose anybody out of this group. You know, whatever this experience becomes for us, I think it's a great starting point for whatever's in our future, because I think our future is bright. We've got really good kids who are good basketball players, and I get to have them stick around for another year on top of that.
You got 17 on this roster. You're willing to play usually about 11 deep in most games. That keeps everybody certainly active and keeps them fresh. Do you change the tactics, though, for the NCAA tournament with media breaks and all the like, or are you still willing to go 11 deep?
Yeah, I think everything's a situational deal now, Dave.
Sure.
But I think that I don't see us changing or deviating from what we've been doing over the course of time here. You know, we've got our rotation, we've got our pecking order. We know what guys can do what in given situations. We got some multi-skilled players that can play multiple positions. So we're just going to go out there and be ourselves. I don't see any reason to change. If our best is good enough, then great. If our best isn't good enough, then we'll address that for the future. But we are who we are, and you know, we're going to take our best out there tomorrow evening.
Interestingly enough, you were having breakfast with the enemy this morning. Katsiafikas, your partner in crime there for the breakfast meal. Of course, he's going to be on the other side of the floor tomorrow with his squad at Pomona Pitzer. What do you expect out of that squad? What do you think you guys need to do to get past them?
Well, you know, Charlie Katz's bringing a really outstanding team into the tournament. You know, they've lost twice all year. They were the only ones to beat Whitman.
Yep.
So that resume speaks for itself. But underneath that, looking at their team, they're tall, they're long, they're experienced, they're multi-skilled. You know, you can't say, I got to get this guy and I can leave this guy alone. I just don't see any weaknesses there at all. Charlie does a great job coaching them. I've known them for 20 years.
Yeah.
They run good stuff. All of their stuff is to highlight the skill set of one of their individual players. Their team is very unselfish. I'm impressed at how they constantly make one extra pass to take a good shot into a great shot. And when you have seniors like he's got who have played together for a long period of time, man, that's a delight to have. I know he's going to be excited to have his group here, particularly with the kind of season they're coming from, too.
Yeah, they're certainly having a good season under, you know, again, hard to grasp what they are. The win over Whitman certainly stands out. As you said, you guys are going to have a great match. By the way, before I let you go, your SID was terrific. Dave Wester, we're looking at a picture now of the entire team in front of a snowbank that is taller than themselves.
You found it, huh?
I did. I think the snow they're standing on is more than you guys normally see in a year. Granted, I know you guys get a little bit once in a blue moon. That's got to be an awesome experience for you guys.
You should have seen. You know, we recruit not only there in northern Texas, but we do well in Houston and San Antonio, and I've got a couple of kids on the team. And when they stepped out of the airplane and A, felt the temperature, and B, looked around at all the snow, I saw some eyes popping. My biggest problem, Dave, right now, is to make sure that the snowball fights, nobody's getting hit in the eye, nobody's getting hit in the nose, and nobody's hitting the head coach, by God.
Yeah, you might not play tomorrow if you hit the head coach.
Yeah, right.
Right. Exact some revenge.
Yeah, but It's definitely a different environment than our kids are used to, and we're having to work real hard to make sure they use, scarves and they're using headgear, and because they're just not used to that. They don't get it. So being from upstate New York, I had to coach them up on that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Terry, you have a little bit of experience in upstate New York, but it's been a while. I'm sure your warm weather gears are more in line than your cold weather gears. Curious, I talked to Whitman. They always talk about how usually they've got to fly a charter to get out of Walla Walla. What did you guys fly? How was your travel experience out there?
Well, we had quite an adventure yesterday, I must say. We got up at 3:30 in the morning. We met a bus at 4 a.m. We got out to DFW Airport. We took a 6 a.m. flight to Denver. I fed him a King's breakfast at McDonald's in the Denver airport. And
at least it's a nice airport.
We climb on a regional jet. And we're closing in. We think we're right there, and they come on and say, "Well, we're going to divert you to Boise because there's too much weather in this area now." So we go to Boise. We're hanging around. We finally get back on the airplane. The weather finally clears. We get in here. We take an hour charter bus. After we fed them another King's meal at Wendy's, and we got on down here. We missed our practice time down here, but local high school was very gracious to open their doors to us in the evening. But all told, it was about a 14-hour ride, which I must say, we went to Italy last spring. It was longer than the trip to Italy.
I was going to say, yeah, again, that conference thing. Sometimes it's a shorter trip to go elsewhere than it is in conference. Sometimes getting in somewhere in the United States is a longer trip than going outside the country. Real quick, where'd you fly into?
A regional airport about an hour from here.
Oh, okay.
And of course, you're going to ask me the name of
it.
No.
I just thought, for some strange reason, I thought maybe they flew you into Spokane. I was going to start laughing about the fact you went to Whitworth. You went to the wrong school, Terry. Thanks for coming on. I know it's been a while since we've chatted. Love seeing you when I do see you. Good luck out there against Pomona Pitzer, and if you're lucky enough to go on, whoever you play in the next round, obviously enjoy it. We know we'll be talking a lot about you guys next year, certainly. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those tuned in?
Well, just want to say thank you for having me on and letting me represent our program and our university and the ASC. That's big to us. Anytime we can get a little publicity, and want to just say thank you so much for all you do for D3 basketball. It's the best thing we have. It's great exposure for the kids, and I love what you do, and I hope you never give it up.
Oh, thanks, Terry. Well, geez, put that pressure on the back end of it. I gotta go. You might need to call the wife. Just a heads up. Appreciate it, really do. Thanks. Take care. Hopefully the trip back is easier, but enjoy the weekend while you're out there.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Terry Butterfield joining us here on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. All interviews on the Hoopsville Hotline are courtesy of our partners at Blue Frame Technology, and their industry-leading production truck software. Is your college ready to showcase its teams through a reliable and innovative video streaming service that won't break your budget? Blue Frame's advanced digital broadcast tools will help your broadcast go to the next level. Learn more today by visiting blueframetech.com. That's www.blueframetech.com, and tell them I sent you. Why not, right? All right, so congratulations to them. Got some tweets out there. Let's see. One person saying also did a good job. Let's see. I feel like there's more of a conversation here. Oh, also did a good job talking about the disadvantage we have in the region scheduling-wise in Texas. Yeah, we talk about that often. Here's what I'll say is I get that there's challenges in Texas. I get that there's challenges in the SCIAC. I get that there's challenges in the northwest part of the country, et cetera, et cetera. I get that those are challenges, but I have seen teams solve those challenges. We have seen Whitman go out there and schedule. Granted, on a little bit of a razor's edge, because if what happens to Whitman is what happened to Whitworth this year, they're not going to make the tournament. And Whitworth arguably won probably too many games against an SOS that wasn't that strong. You know, I understand that there's challenges, and that's the risk it takes. Unfortunately, I don't know where the happy medium is, because if we just went on winning percentages, it opens up a horrible Pandora's box. SOS obviously is at a disadvantage to some degree, but the ASC is one of a couple conferences that plays, in my opinion, too many games. And they've got to find a way to trim off some of the fat to allow teams who want to go better challenge themselves, whether they challenge themselves at home, whether they challenge themselves on the road, whichever the case may be. I think at some point I'd like to see that happen. I get that there's a Sul Rosses and the Louisiana colleges of the world that may have a little bit more trouble finding games, but I've seen enough teams, and whether it's East Texas Baptist women this season or a couple others that I noticed, who are repeating conference foes for non-conference games, or having 2 games against a non-conference foe. They can still go and do that if they want. So let's say you take 20 and trim it to 16, and now a team needs to go find 1 or 2 extra games. They can still go and pair up against a conference foe if they want to. It's not going to help the SOS, but it's not going to hurt the SOS of the entire conference as much as the teams who do that and play a third time. So just in my thinking here, I feel like the ASC's got to do this, and they're not the only ones. The MIAC has to look at their conference scheduling. If they want at-large teams, they have got to fix the SOS, and playing 20 times is a disadvantage. The AMCC is going to be in this boat when they bring in Alfred State next year. That is not going to help them any, because they're going to be up near 20 games for conferences. And the NESCAC's going to have to tackle this soon, because they may run into a scenario with the schedule for allowance of games, earlier in November, that there's going to be non-conference opponents who have no need to play a NESCAC school. And now the NESCAC teams can't find enough games, and they're going to have to add conference games. They cannot go to a double round robin. They're too large in that sense. So you got to get creative, and that's where I just would love to see the ASC take that step. And I get it. You do not need to preach to me that it's tough to find games. I understand that very much so. I talk to enough people. I totally understand that. But I also feel that the conference has to do right by those who are willing to take those steps. If a Texas Dallas or an ETBU or a LeTourneau or a Mary Hardin Baylor or whoever it is willing to go out and get a couple extra games themselves, the conference, in my opinion, has got to let them do that. Right now, that doesn't, and it keeps the conference from getting extra picks. Now, the women got a second pick, but if you look at those 2 women's programs, they went and challenged themselves. Imagine if they could challenge themselves more. That's all I'm saying. So there you go. I think I got it off my chest. Let's see. Ryan says, is there a school in above 18,000? So someone asked, said UT Dallas with 18,000 undergrads, which school in the T3? Tourney has the largest student enrollment. Anyone? I apologize, Mick. I wrote my answer as NYU. I didn't realize you were talking about in the tournament. In the tournament, yeah, I think Texas Dallas probably has the largest enrollment of the tournament off the top of my head. I can't think of all the other tournament teams in, if there's a larger team or a larger school. But I think that would be your answer. If NYU was in, I'd be right. NYU is the biggest enrollment in Division III. All right, before we wrap things up, I told you I would bring you the men's selections. We asked a bunch of guests and friends of the show what they thought or who they thought would win the men's basketball tournament. Really, it started off by asking them, who do you think is going to be in the Final Four? And ended up going off its rails from there. Thanks in part to my friend Ira Thor, but then Tim Calderwood took it and got real serious with this one. Anyway, so they have their picks. It's going to take about 10 minutes. Sit back and enjoy. When we come back, I will not give you my picks, but I'll explain why I'm not giving you my picks, but we'll get you ready for the weekend. So before we sign off, at least, here are our friends and experts who have their thoughts on who will be in the championship weekend in Fort Wayne and who might win a national title as well.
I'm Tim Calderwood. I vote in the men's top 25, and I'm the SID at Benedictine University in Lisle, Illinois, who played in Salem back in 2016. Dave McHugh has asked us for some predictions entering this 2019 NCAA tournament, and I'm just going to tell you this is going to be a little bit longer. As a voter, I pay a lot of attention to the men's tournament and to all those teams on the radar. So here we go. Let's dive in. Last year, the teams who played for the national title didn't have a chance to play on their home floor over the first 2 weekends of the tournament. Could we see a team pull off a similar stunner this year? Also last year, there were tons of surprises on the way to the Salem and, in fact, in Salem as well. Was the successes of last year so much that allowed us to focus on the so-called top 4 teams this year that perhaps we missed someone who can sneak into championship weekend? Well, we'll know the answers to that in a couple of weeks on the trek to Fort Wayne. The biggest question to me entering this tournament is sectional weekend. What happens if the top seeds advance? who is hosting. Who ends up hosting can, of course, have a huge bearing on who reaches championship weekend. Could we see a national title rematch in the sectional semifinals? Well, this is certainly where hosting can come into play, but the NCAA also did not do Oshkosh any favors. Full disclosure, I was the only person who had Oshkosh number 1 on my ballot for a few weeks this year, but losing 2 out of 3 heading into the tournament certainly leaves me with a little bit of questions about that Titan team who has gone through some transition this year. So let's start on that side, and specifically with the defending national champs. Nebraska Wesleyan, really prior to last year, is kind of the best team that you might never heard about. They're on an island, even though they play in the underrated American Rivers Conference. They haven't cruised to a 26-1 record this year, but despite showing some signs of weakness, they've continued to win. And I think that allows them a chance to defend the national title in Fort Wayne. Now, the Augustana bracket sets up really well for a team we've certainly seen a lot of in March. I honestly don't know that there's much of a test waiting for them really anywhere in that grouping. They have kind of a run that looks as though they could be a number 1 overall seed. Certainly it's not necessarily that way, but the way it's set up, it certainly looks like it's a fairly easy route for Augustana. Could conference foe Wheaton emerge as a sectional opponent? Aston Francis is a special player, so make sure you at least watch a little bit of him before Wheaton's season and his career come to a close. There are a lot of on-the-radar, but never really in that top conversation teams in the Augustana pod that can surprise, but I'll take Augustana. Now we look to the other side. Another one-loss team in Whitman, who lost on a neutral floor last year to the national champs. The one loss this season for Whitman came to a team in their pod in Pomona-Pitzer. That was in overtime. How fun would an East Coast-West Coast matchup of Whitman and Williams be in the sectionals? Whitman, in my mind, is another team that's gone through some trials this year, but has overcome those obstacles, and I think they can take it a step further this year by reaching championship weekend. The last bracket is one in my mind that is wide open. Amherst is certainly the favorite, and the Mammoths have returned to the national stage again. But are they prepared for the gauntlet that waits and what is really a wide-open grouping? The Rowan pod specifically is going to be a fun one to watch on opening weekend. I'm going to take a team that's gotten close the last couple of years and despite being ranked 6th entering the tournament has flowed under the radar for much of this season. I know Dave's talked a lot about them. I have them ranked highly as well in Swarthmore. The Garnet have not played a game closer than 18 points in over a month and enter with 10 straight victories. So that leaves us on one side with Whitman and Swarthmore. I like this Whitman team. We'll take the Blues to move on. Nebraska Wesleyan and Augustana could be an epic semifinal. Both teams have lost to Loris this year. Can the size and athleticism and depth of Augustana slow down Nebraska Wesleyan and their outside shooting? I think this one's going to go down to the wire, and Augustana can certainly win in a slower-paced contest. But I'll take the defending champs in an 80-77 type contest, which will lead us to a matchup that, quite frankly, we don't really see all that often, right? Number 1 versus number 2. I hope Memorial Coliseum has some extra nets ready because a lot of points are going to be scored between Nebraska Wesleyan and Whitman, and the scoreboard operator is certainly going to have his finger on the button. I'll take the defending champs to give us the first repeat since Wash 10 years back.
Hey everyone, Ira Thor, Director of Athletic Communications at New Jersey City University and a 15-plus year D3Hoops.com top 25 panelist here with my 2019 Division III tournament predictions. Well, the gyms are quiet for now, but pretty soon in a year where I think the D3 committee did an amazing job with this bracket and made it a true national tournament, I don't think you're going to see a lot of major upsets. So here are my national semifinalists. Out of the upper left quadrant, Whitman edging Hamilton. From the bottom right quadrant, I have Swarthmore defeating Amherst. From the upper right quadrant, I have defending champion Nebraska Wesleyan outlasted Wisconsin Oshkosh in a rematch of the 2018 national title game. And in the bottom right quadrant, I have Augustana knocking off my NJCU Gothic Knights in the national quarterfinals. In the national semifinals, I have Whitman knocking out Swarthmore and Nebraska Wesleyan defeating Augustana. Yes, not a lot of originality here, but in my opinion, these are the two best teams in the country all year. In the finals, the Whitman Blues, after losing in the semifinals in 2017 and the quarterfinals to Nebraska Wesleyan last year, they finally get it done. They extend their winning streak to 28. They finished the year 32-1, and they win the national title in Fort Wayne. This team is averaging 105 points per game, and they will continue their incredible three-point shooting throughout the tournament as Joey Hewitt and the Blues win 96-88. They're playing just too well in the second half of the season, and they will outlast the Wolves team that averages 6 players in double figures.
Hey guys, this is Bob Quillman, Central Region correspondent on Hoopsville, amateur pool C bracketologist, and generally just a guy that likes to give Dave McHugh a really hard time as much as I can. My good friend Dave asked me for some Final Four picks. For what it's worth, I'm going to give you my men's picks. I've got Whitman, Amherst, UW Oshkosh, and Augustana. In the national championship game, I have the Blues of Whitman facing the Vikings of Augustana. My national champion is the team I think is the most talented, the deepest, and the most complete. I'm going to go with the Vikings of Augustana. I have the CCIW winning its first national championship since 1997. Should be an awesome tournament. Hope everyone has a great and safe time following your teams, and I hope to see all of you in Fort Wayne.
Hello everybody, this is Ryan Scott, your Around the Nation columnist for D3Hoops.com. In the 2019 tournament, sadly, I'm going mostly with chalk. You know I love my upsets, but this is what I think will happen. In Fort Wayne, I've got Whitman, Swarthmore, Augustana, and Wisconsin Oshkosh. 3 of those 4 teams have a number of players with Final Four experience, which means it's going to be excellent basketball. In the first semifinal, outside of the press, Whitman and Swarthmore actually have a lot in common. But in this matchup of colors, I think the Blues overpower the Garnet and move on to the final. The other semifinal, Oshkosh and Augustana, is going to be the game of the tournament. I think overtime for this one. I've gotten in a lot of trouble not trusting Nolan Ebel this year, but between Jack Flynn on the inside, Ben Boots on the outside, I think Oshkosh just overpowers them and gets on to the final. Sadly, though, in the championship game, another disappointing runner-up finish for the Titans. Whitman has seniors, experience, talent, depth. They're on a mission. I think the winningest senior class in D3 history gets to bring the championship to Pacific Time Zone for the very first time.
Hi, I'm Ryan Whitnable, host of This Week in Great Lakes Basketball, with my Final Four picks for this year's men's NCAA basketball tournament. Starting in the top left-hand side of the bracket, the Blues of Whitman, champions of the Northwest Conference, will make their way to yet another Final Four in Fort Wayne. In the bottom left-hand side of the bracket, and a bit of a surprise, Swarthmore, champions of the Centennial Conference, will also make their way to the final weekend. Moving on to the right side of the bracket, I've got the Titans up top and the WIAC champions of Wisconsin Oshkosh. And in the bottom right-hand side of the bracket, it's the Vikings of Augustana, getting to yet another Final Four this year in Fort Wayne. In the national semifinals, Whitman will get past Swarthmore, and finally, Wisconsin Oshkosh will get past Augustana to set up a national championship between Wisconsin Oshkosh and Whitman. And this year, my national champion, Coach Bridgeland, and the Blues of Whitman finally get over the hump and win a national title for the Northwest Conference. Best of luck to all the teams, and hope to see everyone in Fort Wayne.
Hey, this is Pat Coleman, executive editor of D3Hoops.com, and here are my Final Four picks in the Division III men's basketball bracket. Top left, Whitman. Bottom left, Amherst. Top right, Nebraska Wesleyan. Bottom left, Augustana. And do I need to pick a winner to pick them all, to win them all? I'm going with Whitman. That's my pick in less than 30 seconds. Thanks for tuning into D3Hoops.com.
I'm Tim Calderwood. I vote in the men's top 25.
Whoops, start over again. Anyway, thanks to all the guys. Jeez, Calderwood took that one seriously, did he not? Thank to everybody else's picks as well. Winnable and Ryan Scott with the exact same picks there. We're going to say Winnable stole it from Scott. Anyway, great job by everybody there. Appreciate their time. I am not selecting because here's the biggest reason. I'm on the call once again for the Division III championship weekend. I don't want anybody out there, and there's enough crazies who are going to think that I somehow in my call am calling it based on who I want to see in the championship game or win it based on picks I make here tonight. Do I have enough confidence in myself as a broadcaster? Because I do enough broadcasting. This is one of 4 national championships that I take part in at the Division III level, with more being added. And, of course, I do Division I, Division III, and high school games all the time. I have enough confidence in myself that my picks will mean nothing when it comes to my broadcasting ability, my ability to be unbiased, for lack of a better description, but neutral, really, in my ability to do the job. However, there's enough crazies of you out there who will not see it that way, and as a result, I've decided no longer to make my picks. It just isn't a risk worth taking to hear enough Twitter banter back and forth from all of you. So there you go. I think all of those picks are great. I think it's going to be a wide-open tournament. I don't think it holds chalk as much as everybody else does, but I certainly think we're going to see some of our favorites. And by the way that bracket's set up, we also could see some of the heavyweights in Fort Wayne. Really looking forward to it. Dan Tome says, Dave can't turn down $100,000 they pay him to do announcing. I wish. If that was the amount of money I was getting paid, then the news I got today at the car shop where my car was in for an oil change would not even bother me. But the fact it needs 2 major fixes to keep it running after we just purchased a new car, I wish it was $100,000. Anyway, breaking news. Just received email. Kevin Vanderstreek has retired from Calvin. Remember, he was chair 2 years ago, or really last year, I should say. No, 2 years ago. I'm right. It was Tim out of Coast Guard, who, interestingly enough, Tim has moved on from Coast Guard. He has left as well. But Kevin Vanderstreek has announced that he is retiring from Calvin. We just got the information. He will remain at Calvin as a professor and an administrator. He retires after a 23-year run as head coach of the Knights, longest tenured head coach in Calvin men's basketball history, all-time leader in victories in Calvin men's basketball history. 435 and 208 is his mark. Includes 9 MIA regular season titles, 9 MIA tournament crowns, and 10 trips to the NCAA tournament. In 2000, he led Calvin to the school's second national title in men's basketball in a 30-2 season after they beat Wisconsin Eau Claire in the title game. So now both Calvin programs are looking for coaches. Remember, they let go of their women's coach about 9 games left in the season. That job is open. I know that much. I've gotten information there, which I think makes this more interesting. I've gotten information out of Calvin that we may see a familiar face with the women's job. That said, with this job now opening, I think that familiar face has options. But it also, this is going to be a national search. Now, remember, Calvin is a unique school in its religious makeup and all. And I think on the women's side, we noticed that it's not always the right fit for who seems like a good coach, for what they do. You've got to fit in many other ways. Now, remember, new coaches do not take on the professional, the professor side of things as much as the old coaches like Vanderstreek work. Kevin was holding on to 3 or 4 jobs or teaching 3 or 4 classes a year. So he had a lot on his plate and was also national chair. The new coaches coming in don't have to take on that responsibility. So that's removed. But the religious side of it, the culture side of it is something you want to find the right pick. So while it will be, I think it's a highly sought after job, it's not for everybody. So it'll be fascinating to see how Calvin men and women go here. Again, Kevin Vanderstreek announcing that he is out. He's retiring from Calvin men's basketball. Heck of a way to go out, by the way. 3-0 against Hope this season. That is listen, there's national titles, there's conference titles, certainly. Those are all important. But Kevin's going to retire going 3-0 against Hope. And I'm just proud to say I got to see Kevin coach in a game at Hope. Unfortunately, we were unable to catch up with him after the game to get an interview with him. I'm now kind of kicking myself a little bit. We didn't try harder. But congratulations to Kevin, nonetheless, on his career. And Calvin, men's and women's basketball, starting fresh, completely anew. Again, a familiar face I've been told could be in the mix, at least we were told, for the women's job. I think with Kevin now leaving, that could change that a little bit. But we'll keep an eye on things and see how it plays out. Dan says Bob Semling. No, not that familiar a face. Bob Semling still at Stevens Point last we checked. Oh, wait, they're not in the tournament. We need to check faster. But no, all kidding aside, Bob Semling, last we heard, still at Stevens Point despite the outcome of the investigation. I think that's worth watching. The school has until November 22nd to put a show cause in place to show the NCAA how they will adapt or adjust or whatever they need to the punishments handed down to Bob. But that's something we'll keep an eye on. I don't think we need to do anything about it now. Let's see here. Dan, I don't know what you're saying about Dan Dakish. I'm not following that. Trying to see if there's other comments. Did Ira finally make it to the Ohio River? Last we checked, Ira did make it to the Ohio weather. So did New Jersey City after 10 hours on the bus, going round and round. Sorry, bad joke. So there you go. So breaking news there. Again, Kevin Vandestreek out as head coach. I'm quickly checking. I don't think he had 2 seasons below 500. Unfortunately, those 2 coming in the last 4 years. Here's the thing that I also think is a challenge for Calvin, and this is something I think institutionally they need to look at. There's a lot of expectations on Hope and Calvin for teams to do well, but they don't have full-time assistant coaches. And I know Division III doesn't have a lot of them, but I think it was really unfair for a professor who's also a coach who doesn't have a full-time assistant. I think that's insane. Now, that's changed, and you could make an argument they don't need full-times, but I think full-time assistant coaches are certainly very helpful in all sports in Division III these days. So there you go. Kevin Vandestreek out at Hoopsville. I'd love to tell you you heard it here first, but you didn't. If anybody's been following around Division III, you may have seen a lot of other places where that was announced. I've gotten a text already from some individuals about it. I see it on Twitter. So that announcement coming out to all of us, which is fair. But at least you heard it here first versus reading it somewhere first. All right, so that's going to do it. We are a little late because the show, with some technical glitches, ran long, so we're going to wrap things up. We got to get ready for tomorrow's whip around. Again, Ryan Scott will be in studio tomorrow. Gordon Mann will join us on Saturday. There's a chance you may hear from well, maybe Bob Quillman, but Pat Coleman at some point during our broadcast as well. This is Tournament Central for you if you're a Division III fan. If you want to know what's going on, we will keep you abreast, and we have permission. We are the only place you'll be able to go in and see all the games going on. We will take you to games that are taking place. We'll dive in and look at games going on, take you down to incredible finishes, try and get you to all of them. Some of them time themselves poorly that we can't get to all of them, but we will do our best. We'll try and at least stay with programs. If you are a streaming school out there, I implore you for 2 things. One, make sure you keep streaming at the end of your broadcast so that your broadcast doesn't abruptly end at the very end. There's always handshakes and stuff, but at least give all of us a chance to see the end of a game. Make sure your camera operators are following the action at all times. I can't tell you how many times we've seen a camera not follow the action, and a buzzer beater was it for the win. So please follow the action. And most importantly, enjoy the experience, everybody. This is the best time of the year. We always enjoy being on the air for this stuff, but we also enjoy watching the games, and it should be a blast, and we hope all of you will enjoy it with us. You can get all the links to live stats and videos streams at d3hoops.com. Of course, we'll be Tournament Central showing you all that, breaking things down as well, and so on and so forth. We'll be back on, so Friday whip around, Saturday whip around. We'll be back on the air Sunday, 7 o'clock Eastern with Hoopsville for some ungodly reason. And then we'll try and figure out what we're doing the next weekend. So there you go. Got any questions for us? You can always ask them in the off air if you need. You can tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. You can email us, dave.mchugh@d3sports.com. And, of course, you can always follow us on Facebook and message us there as well, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Want to thank all of our guests for appearing on the show tonight. They included Matt Hunter from York College, Bobby Hughes from Rosemont, Brian Morehouse from Hope, Brad Fisher from Oshkosh, and Terry Butterfield from Texas Dallas. I want to thank the sports information directors at those institutions as well. They included Scott Geis at York College. Also want to thank Dave Wester at Texas Dallas. Of course, Kevin Cooney at Rosemont. Want to thank him for his time. Didn't get to talk to Ken and Tim. But Ken Tim is the SID at Oshkosh. We didn't need him. We needed him to rest, as we once again send our thoughts to him after a tough accident that he has had to be hospitalized for. We hope he's on the mend in the best way possible, as they say. And so on and so forth. I don't know if I left somebody out. I don't remember if I did. Of course, at Hope, it's Alan Babbitt. Sorry, Alan. Alan, I love you. Alan knows that. But thanks to Alan for his help as well. And then thanks to everybody who joined, who sent in their picks. Pat Coleman, Ryan Scott, Ryan Winnable, Bob Quillman, Ira Thor, and Tim Calderwood. I know there were others who wanted to, but were unable to send theirs in. I appreciate the effort nonetheless to even consider it. And with that, we'll sign off. You've been listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. I want to thank our partners at D3Hoops.com. Of course, the Women's Basketball Coaches Association, the National Association of Basketball Coaches, Blue Frame Technology. Want to thank Wisconsin Eau Claire for their support as well. And, of course, City of Salem and the City of Fort Wayne. Get your tickets today for the championship weekends in women's basketball at the Roanoke College and for men's basketball at the Allen County War Memorial Coliseum in Fort Wayne. Hoopsville will be there on location in Fort Wayne with Hoopsville courtside shows, but we can talk more about that down the road. But thanks to everybody for their support of our programming, especially with more car repairs. That support is more necessary than it needs to be. And with that, we sign off. If you want to talk Division III basketball, you've got to listen to Hoopsville. We'll be back on the air Sunday, but join us for Whip Around this Friday and Saturday, starting at 5 o'clock Eastern on Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern on Saturday, and make sure to go to D3Hoops.com for all your tournament news, information, and links. Good night, everybody, and enjoy the tournaments. This should be an awesome run to a championship. Good night, everybody.